I was like, I would like to thank the dear leader, Tim Houston, for helping me to see the error of my ways. Were it not for his overbearing paternalism, I might have gotten lost in the park by my house and accidentally walked my dog for 8 days to find myself engulfed in the flames of the nearest wildfire.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Johnny Says So. And my guest today, I don't think needs any introduction. Now, this is Jeff Evely. He's a member of the PPC Party of Canada. He's a Canadian Forces veteran who served in Afghanistan and Iraq. And most recently, he's been in the news for violating Nova Scotia's ridiculous draconian policy of not going in the woods under threat of a $25,000 fine. So, Jeff, I know you've been busy, man, but thanks for making time to come onto the show, man. How are you tonight?
Oh, not too bad, Johnny. My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
No problem, man. So, yeah, I guess my first question right off the bat is what was going through your mind when you went behind the Department of Natural Resources office and basically called the snitch line on yourself for about to take a walk in the woods there? Where was your what was your thought process behind that?
Well, actually, this story goes all the way back to 2023. See, the first time Nova Scotia put these woods bans in place would have been in 2023. And at that time, I thought that they were too overbroad at that time. I thought it was an overreach because I live on Cape Breton Island. There were no active fires anywhere in Cape Breton, and they locked me out of the park on that occasion. So I submitted a judicial review back then. The Crown tried to argue that the court should dismiss it on mootness because by the time we got to court, the ban had been lifted. And they also argued that it should be dismissed on standing because I didn't have standing. Now, I tried. There are two ways you can get standing. One is public interest. I said that there was a public interest in knowing whether or not hiking is legal, and on private matters, on the private interest standing, I said my rights were violated, but the court said I couldn't stand on my rights alone. There had to be money involved, and had I gotten fined, yeah, I know, that was pretty much my reaction too. I was like, really? Like, your rights don't really mean anything in a Canadian court?
So your rights weren't actually violated because you didn't receive the fine. So your movement was restricted heavily, but your rights weren't violated because you weren't handed a ticket? Is that what they were trying to tell you?
Well, they wouldn't even consider the question on my rights because they said there was no financial harm. Had I owned a business in the woods that I suffered a loss because of the ban, then that would have given me standing. Or had I gotten fined, that's an obvious loss, financial harm, then that would have given me standing. So when they came out with the ban this time, I knew on the first day. The first day I showed up in the same park where they taped off the trails again, I knew right away that what I had to do is I had to go and get fined. And I was actually, a little ticked about them doing this again. So
yeah,
if you've seen the first video I did where I was just going around showing the tape and saying, this is the woods and this is not the woods, I was really just kind of blowing off steam. Like I was goofing around because I was rather irritated, and I knew I had to go get this fine, so I would be dealing with a confrontation when it came to, the DNR officers. They were great, by the way, throughout the entire interaction. I think they were really professional. But
you couldn't have made it easier for them. I mean,
what's that?
You couldn't have made it easier for them. The whole exchange was very, it was probably the most Canadian thing I've ever seen. Just, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to make you guys do work. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to charge you $28,000.
Yeah, and I thanked them for it.
That was wild to see.
Yeah, that was what the Chronicle Herald put in their article. So the Halifax paper there, the Chronicle Herald, I thought they had the best article, really, because the headline, first of all, was if pedophiles have a right to loiter by children's playgrounds, do Nova Scotians have a right to walk in the woods? And I thought they presented my case really well. It was very straightforward, no nonsense reporting that was just so refreshing.
I saw that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually you'd expect the legacy media to just to really defend these ass backwards policies, as we saw like throughout COVID and whatnot. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I even saw. I can't remember if it was. It certainly wasn't CBC. I remember like there was a local station that like sort of presented it a little bit fairly. Maybe it was Global.
No, globalists were the worst offenders, actually.
Globalist was okay.
Yeah, globalist news. They were the worst. They were the worst offenders. I mean, there was one radio DJ that I talked to in Toronto that I thought was, like just incredibly smug, and clearly engaged in an effort to, throw some shade on me. But I handled that just fine. And but globalist, what they did was they reframed the issue, the whole story, to make it look like it was a cry for attention on my part. So, I gave them a half an hour interview, and what they did is they took one clip out of there where the question they were asking me was, why did I post the video on social media? And what I said was that we'd seen an awful lot of bad precedent being set by the courts over the course of the last several years. And my hope was that if there was enough public awareness around the issue, the judge would render a better decision under scrutiny. So I told them that, and they ran that. But the way they presented the whole thing, like they just clipped in my answer there, and I'm saying bad precedent, so it doesn't even really jive with the whole flow of the narrative that they set up there. But yeah, the way that they clipped that in and they reframed the whole thing, they reframed the rights issue as safety. They didn't mention the Charter of Rights. They didn't mention any of that stuff. Why I did it, like, never got presented. But why I posted it on social media, they posted that part. And, quite frankly, what I said didn't even really support their whole narrative about me just being attention seeking.
Well, how could you not post it on social media either? That's what I don't understand about that whole narrative. Like, obviously you're trying to draw attention to the issue, right? I mean, like, we have the tools to broadcast our message across, to Canadians and the rest of the world. So why wouldn't we use this technology? I don't really understand that argument at all. Obviously, attention does need to be raised to this issue, right? Like,
I think so. I think that it's basically a two-prong approach on my part. I'm taking them into court, and I'm also taking them into the court of public opinion. As I explained, my reasoning there is because the courts have been just absolutely atrocious over the course of the last several years, and so I happen to think, and this is probably based on mostly experience on my part, because I was inside the machine for 20 years when I was in uniform, and I happen to think that a lot of these people that are in positions of leadership and power and influence over our society right now are utterly image obsessed. I saw it all throughout government in my career, and they tend to be more concerned with the outwardly facing optics than they are with whether or not the internal machinery is well oiled and running like a clock.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I'm glad you said the court of public opinion too, because Jeff, I can't believe this is controversial. I can't believe like what you did is controversial. Like, this is Canada. Like, we're supposed to be a outdoor loving free society, right? Like, I can't believe that like a lot of people think my take on this is a bad one. You know what I mean? Like, it just like this whole thing doesn't pass the smell test. It's not logical whatsoever. Like, you know what I mean? I was a little bit pissed off when they brought back, like, when Tim Houston got up there and said, like, yeah, no burning until October 15th. Like, I thought maybe, like, okay, that might be a little bit heavy-handed because, let's be honest, the meteorologists lately haven't been super accurate. They could have just said things are really dry and it's going to be a red day from here on out. You know what I mean? Like, until further notice, no burning. And you know what I mean? Like, if you cause a wildfire, you'll be held accountable. I feel like that's all they needed to say. Yeah. But, like, the burn ban aside, like, this whole woods ban doesn't pass the smell test. It's not logical whatsoever. And back to the court of public opinion, though, like, you'd think there'd be some pushback on this, right? But most people seem to just be like, okay, I'll go along to get along. You know what I mean? No, I won't make waves. I won't cause trouble. It's just for a few weeks, right? 2 weeks to flatten the fires. Where have we heard that before, right? Like,
I think it's 2 months to flatten the climate this time. But Yeah, you touched on, you said the words precisely there. It's logical. It's not logical. And, under the law, under our charter, in accordance with the Oakes test, which is the test to determine whether or not the measures are charter compliant, the measures do have to be rationally connected to the goal. So logical. And as you mentioned, and as I have been emphasizing, my sneakers are not a fire hazard. There is no logical connection between banning my sneakers from the woods and preventing wildfires. So on its face, it doesn't pass the Oakes test. And also, whatever measures they put in place need to be minimally impairing with respect to my liberties. Now, as you said, they could have put a burn ban in place, and I would say, okay, that's logical. They could have done any number of measures beyond that. They could have banned stoves from the woods. They could have, banned any source of ignition from the woods. I've heard about ATV bans that they do out west. I don't know what the stats are on that, but that seems like a pretty reasonable measure, just on its face.
Well, 2023, I think there were 8 fire department calls for a fire in Nova Scotia that were caused by like a hot exhaust pipe touching tall grass, right? So that does happen for sure. But to put that in perspective, there were 53 arson calls. So
yeah,
wow,
that is some good perspective there. Thanks for that. So 8 ATV fires and 53 arsons.
I do believe it was 8, but I don't think the stats specifically said ATV. I think it was just vehicle. But you can sort of extrapolate that would be like, that could include like car crashes as well.
Yeah.
But I take it to mean, given that it was on the wildfire stats, I take it to mean that was like a hot exhaust pipe or something.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's a pretty reasonable assumption, I think. And those kinds of measures, I think, are logically connected to the goal. And it's just a matter of figuring out, what our risk appetite is at any given moment, in light of conditions. So that I could see, like if they were putting those kinds of measures in place, I really wouldn't be kicking a stink up about this. But when you put a blanket ban that maximally impairs my liberties by not even allowing me to so much as walk in the woods. I say that doesn't pass the Oakes test again, because it's not measured. There doesn't appear to have been any consideration for minimal impairment whatsoever. They just went all the way to a blanket ban. And one other thing about the charter is the fine, because they handed me a ticket for $28,872.50, and cruel and unusual punishment is prohibited under Section 12 of the charter. So, in light of the fact that fines for drunk driving are much less, this kind of thing. Somebody was posting all the different fines that Nova Scotia typically dishes out. Like, this is way, way up there. There is no crime you could commit that would get you hit with a $25,000 fine, except for maybe like white collar crime for super rich guys and stuff like that. But
but we all know they don't see any justice, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But of course not.
Brookfield, anybody?
Brookfield,
yeah.
I mean, Carney, conflicts of interest, like just the things that people are getting away with these days are absolutely outrageous. He stands to gain. He stands to get richer by driving the housing crisis, because Brookfield heavily invested in modular housing. Prior to him, it was a few years ago now. I think they actually fired it up in about 2019. But yeah, I mean, he's proposing modular housing to address the housing crisis. His company builds modular housing, so he has a vested interest in keeping prices high, and levels of immigration high, to continue to drive the crisis in order to make money with Brookfield.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny you brought up the, just when I brought up Carney there very briefly, you mentioned the housing crisis, but another reason this whole thing doesn't pass the smell test is the one wildfire we had outside of Halifax last week, right? Which I do believe is still going, but it's pretty much under control now. That was caused by a homeless encampment. They're not saying it out loud, but
it's not clear. It's actually quite sus. I haven't had much time for deep dives over the course of the last week, but yeah, I mean, the way they were presenting that in the press conference, it just seemed like because people were asking like what was the exact location of the start of the fire, and they were saying, oh, the investigation is ongoing, and they're like, well, wait a minute, you just said you know how the fire was caused. That means you determined its source, so you must know where the exact location.
Well, I can tell you I'm very familiar. I'm very familiar with the area, and there has been a lot of people tenting back there. It's like it started like just a couple kilometers behind not even a couple kilometers, maybe half a kilometer away from the Kent store in Bears Lake. And there's like behind the store is Susie's Lake through the woods. There's a whole series of hiking trails back there. And there's like a few clearings where in recent years there have been like tents visible. You can actually see them sometimes from like the Costco parking lot. And that's another reason why this isn't logical, because on any given summer day, I can assure you that there would have been people walking through that trail system back there, cutting through the woods to go swimming, and they would have reported that fire much earlier, maybe even had put it out. You know what I mean? So like having less eyes in the woods is not a good thing if you want to prevent wildfires. Which, by the way, how is it going with that? How many wildfires are we preventing anyways? Because it seems to me ever since the ban took effect, we've been having more fires than ever. So yeah, but good luck telling them that. They'll just they'll be coming out and saying, oh, I just got COVID for the third time, but it's a good thing I got my booster because it could have been a lot worse. Oh, I just died of COVID. It's a good thing I was boosted, so it would have been a lot worse. So I kind of see that happening again. There's a lot of conflation between correlation and causation, especially on the left. Like this is something that the left does a lot, is they point to a correlation and then lead to the conclusion that there's a causal connection between them. But just because two things are happening at once doesn't necessarily mean that one is causing the other. But this is kind of how they craft their narratives. The COVID narrative was kind of kind of a masterclass in that, I guess, for anybody who hadn't noticed before. Yep. And not only that, they shift the goalpost as well. So like when Houston comes out and says that, like, well, we're limiting your access to the woods because like human activity, it's only a matter of time before it starts a fire. And then when you point out how ridiculous that is, they'll say, okay, well, we're banning you from the woods for your own safety, right? Because wildfire is terrifying, right? Like nobody's just going to be walking through the woods and wander into a wildfire. But apparently we're stupid. Apparently we are that infantilized in this country that we need big daddy government to protect us from this. Govern me harder, daddy. Like that's the meme, right? But it's so true, man. And people just seem to eat it up with very little pushback.
Yeah, they think we're idiots, and that is projection. What is it James Lindsay calls it? The iron law of woke projection.
Iron law of woke projection.
Yeah, so it's something like that, and it was actually even more ridiculous than you just described, because he started out, basically making the case that more people, like you said, more people in the woods causes more fires, and I've been out there tweeting about, how sneakers don't cause fires, and then you have Susan Holt out there, and I was in the news and all this stuff, of course. From where I'm sitting, like it doesn't really seem like a big deal because I just kind of interact with my computer all day. But I'm kind of like just reading the tea leaves here, and it's like, okay, first they were saying it was sneakers cause fire, and then I was in the news, and then Susan Holt comes out and says, no, obviously it's not sneakers cause fires. We're not saying that. We're saying that we don't have enough resources to keep everybody alive, and you guys are klutzes and you break your legs in the woods. I don't know how often that really happens. I doubt it's very much. But
I'd love to see stats on it.
Yeah, I would love to see those stats. And this is the kind of thing that they never look at. None of these people are making decisions based on any kind of data or anything based in reality. It's all emotional. And they're very scared, and they're very worried about those outward-facing optics that I discussed. So yeah, they need to be seen doing things, and they need to appear to be the wise elders stewarding us through this crisis. And so they talk to us like we're children. Susan Holt said, we can't trust you guys to go into the woods without breaking your legs. And we don't have the resources to keep you alive anymore. So that was a kind of a tacit admission on her part of mismanagement right off the bat. And then later in the week, it kicked back over to Tim Houston, and he was saying, okay, I know everybody wants to, go for a walk and they want to walk their dog in the woods. And But, and we're not telling you to stay out, because you're going to cause a fire. But what if you were walking in the woods and you found yourself completely engulfed in flames? I mean, I don't think anybody would enjoy that very much. And I was just like, oh my God. And when I tweeted that, I had the video for that, and I was tweeting about it, or posting on X, whatever it is now. And I was like, I would like to thank the dear leader, Tim Houston, for helping me to see the error of my ways. Were it not for his overbearing paternalism, I might have gotten lost in the park by my house and accidentally walked my dog for 8 days to find myself engulfed in the flames of the nearest wildfire. Because the nearest one at that time was down toward Truro there. So I'm still like, I'm all the way up here in Sydney, bro. Like, I'm not, going to get lost in the park and accidentally walk to Truro with my dog.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous, man. But like as for like people, like, because as much as I rag on them for buying into the narrative, like most people that go along with this stuff, like you can see they're well-intentioned. You know what I mean? Like they believe the propaganda. They genuinely believe that like, oh, they're helping and like they're making these sacrifices and you're a bad person if you speak out against it. But you can see that they're weaponizing people's empathy when they talk about supporting the firefighters. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how many times I've seen that online. Like, having this conversation with you, it doesn't seem evident to me that I'm not supporting the firefighters or grateful for what they do.
Yeah.
I can't help but point out that, I'm sorry, but me walking on a paved trail with my dog through the forest like I've done a million times before isn't going to start a fire. And yeah. I just wish people would turn this misguided outrage that they have to people like myself, and well, especially to you, because I've seen the comments on your social media, dude. And like, I wish some of these people that are trolling you and making death threats against you and calling you every name in the book can just sort of like realize what our government officials are saying and maybe sort of get mad that we don't have the resources to help them if they break their leg in the woods. You know what I mean? Like, maybe we should start there. What do you think about that?
Yeah. And I like that term that you just used, weaponized empathy. Consider it stolen.
Okay. Feel free to use that, man. It's on me.
I appreciate that, because I have been talking about this as well, and just what a sinister thing it is, how they use our desire to be good people to drive us to do evil things, to go along with their evil agenda. We saw a lot of this in COVID. It was the same idea. Like, if you don't mask up, which I didn't, and I was killing grandma then. And now it's like you're burning people's houses down and killing firefighters if you so much as go for a walk in the woods. I think that's also reminiscent of the fact that the left uses human shields. I mean, it was Judith Butler. She's the Marxist professor who first advanced the idea that that gender is a social construct. And she said that in recent years, she said that it's extremely important to understand that Hamas is part of the global left. They're part of the global progressive movement. And what are they known for? Using human shields. And so that's kind of what I see them all doing on the left, is they use human shields to advance their totalitarian agenda, whether it's, you're killing grandma if you're not on board with the totalitarian agenda, or it's you're killing firefighters because you're not on board with the totalitarian agenda. That's what they do, is they use human shields to kind of turn everybody against those of us who are doing everything we can to help.
Yeah, totally, man. And you say totalitarianism, and obviously you've tied COVID in with this a couple of times, and I've seen comments on social media about stuff like this, and people are saying, "Oh, relax, this isn't COVID. This is nothing like COVID. It's just a couple of restrictions for a couple of weeks. Nothing like COVID, right?" But I'm definitely seeing parallels, just in like the hive mentality of like how people are acting right now. We're not having like daily press conferences. The restrictions haven't ramped up or gotten worse. But I keep hearing this term climate lockdown. And, I came up listening to conspiracy theories, and I like a good deep dive now and then. Like, I don't buy into a lot of it. But
Yeah.
during COVID, there was a lot of talk about, oh, these lockdowns are great for the environment. And there were even a couple of articles like in the height of like the craziness in 2020 and 2021, even going so far as to say that we need a COVID-19 style lockdown every 2 years to keep up with the demands of the Paris Accord. You know what I mean? So like, how realistic of a scenario do you think it is that Canadians could be conditioned to accept like even worse restrictions than this if they are told it's going to save the planet? You know what I mean? Like, because if we did everything we did in 2020 and the years beyond to save grandma, and people were convinced of that, how far could they be convinced to not just save grandma but the world? You know what I mean? It's a little out there, but what do you think of that?
I think, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. There are those out there who are being fooled twice, so shame on them. But I think perhaps even the government recognizes that they've kind of got a bit over their skis on this one, and they did get over their skis in the 2023 wildfire season as well, because they were out there screaming about climate change, so much so that Sean Fraser, who was an MP from Nova Scotia, Liberal MP from Nova Scotia, got up on the floor of the House of Commons and wagged his finger at the rest of us for driving our cars, and shame on the Conservatives for not voting for the carbon tax. This wildfire is all your fault. And then, of course, it came out that the Barrington fire in particular, which was the largest fire in Nova Scotia's history, they charged the guy with lighting a fire on private property, failing to take steps to prevent that fire from spreading, and leaving that fire unattended. So that sure sounds like arson to me. And we know that there were multiple other cases of arson. Like, say, there were a couple in Pictou where I don't even think they picked anybody up, but they've been very quiet about what's going on there. And this time they're coming out, as soon as they say climate, everybody is all over them with this arson stuff, like I was on the Nova Scotia, account on Twitter there, the government of Nova Scotia on Twitter. I was asking them, one of the questions I had, I was thinking of this when you're talking about the homeless encampments, but I was like, everybody's asking for clarification. And I'm like, can I smoke crack? Are homeless encampments considered the woods? This kind of thing. So, yeah.
Oh, you can go camping in Canada, man, just as long as it's not in the woods.
Yeah, apparently you can go to the campgrounds. You just can't go in the woods. That is the question, right? If a campground is not the woods, then what about a homeless encampment? I do think they kind of got over their skis, and I think they kind of realize it. It seems like everybody's been all over them online about the arson. They're a little, they're pretty sus with the Susie's Lake fire there. Like I said, they're not really talking about how it was started, where it was started, anything like that. They're not really hyping the climate this time around, it seems. They're trying to make the case that, these are human caused. They're not saying climate. They're not, they're talking about the dry conditions and stuff like that, but I just haven't really seen them going on like about the climate like they did last time around in 2023. Like, nobody's getting up on the floor of the House of Commons and saying, see, Mark Carney, like you shouldn't have repealed that carbon tax because now there are fires in Nova Scotia. So it feels like, maybe the tide has started to turn in that regard.
I hope you're right, but I don't mean to be too pessimistic about it. I feel like federally, at least, I think the Liberals just they, no pun intended, but they have a few fires to put out right now. Like this whole situation with like the trade war with the United States is a great example, because like Mark Carney, he's got all these business dealings with the United States, and you know what I mean? Like, he's trying to make it seem like he's open to actually getting some energy projects off the ground in Canada. All talk, of course. I don't think he's going to be doing that, but I think he needs to, like, he sort of has to like put the climate change fear on the back burner for a minute and make it seem like he's willing to maybe get some pipelines built. We all know he's not, but the whole trade war thing has to cool down before they start hitting us with the WEF goals of net zero, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's probably true. Like they're in no position really to be advancing these massive societal changing goals, to right now, because they're failing. They're failing at absolutely everything else. We're about to get crushed economically. I would be shocked if we're not in a severe depression within the next year. And we're already seeing signs of it in the housing market. Like prices are dropping, people can't sell. I think a lot of people moved during COVID, so they took mortgages when the rates were low, and now they've jacked the rates. So people are coming up for renewal. If you bought in 2020, then this year is your renewal. That means you're going to be paying a much higher rate than you were before, and a much higher monthly payment. So whether you can afford it or not may be another matter. And when you're in a situation like that, the only option is foreclosure. Like they're walking away from their houses. So I think that a lot of people are probably in that boat, trying to sell their houses to get their money back, and they're ended up taking like a huge hit. I saw somebody who lost like $500,000, like a third of the value of the house from the time that they bought it. In the Toronto area in particular, and the Chinese have been messing around in those markets pretty extensively for decades now, especially the big cities. And this is happening they have no buyers; they can't even sell. This is also happening during an affordability crisis. So these people who are trying to divest themselves of what is now a liability instead of an investment, the house. They're hooped, man, because nobody can afford to buy right now either. So, and we have inflation. So the whole it's like death by 1,000 cuts. The whole system is just kind of imploding on itself.
Yeah, it's kind of depressing to think about, but that is indeed where we are, and it seems to me like it's sort of all by design. I feel like Carney was put here as a successor to Trudeau to sort of manage the decline of Canada, as I guess it's the simplest way I could put it.
I think that Justin Trudeau was just the Wizard of Oz. Like that guy never had an original thought in his head. Mark Carney was the man behind the curtain, I think, pretty much the whole time. He has been his advisor since like 2019, 2020, something like that. Mark Carney as an official advisor. So he's advising the top politician in the country with respect to the laws that he should pass at the same time that he's making money, especially off of the green agenda through Brookfield with China and the Chinese Investment Corp. And also on foreign oil, because he owns oil in Nigeria, he owns oil in the United States, he owns oil in Brazil. So if he allows our oil to get to market, well, I mean, supply and demand dictates that the value of his assets will go down. So everything about Mark Carney is spells trouble for Canada, because if we have any prosperity at all, he's going to be less rich. So he's the last guy who should be advising Trudeau, and definitely like the less than last guy that should ever have been prime minister. And he was also the one, don't forget, who he penned an article in the Globe and Mail calling the trucker convoy sedition, and he was calling for a crackdown. And what happened? Marco Mendicino texts David Lametti and says, "Hey, could you get a hold of Anita Anand so we can get some tanks from the military to crush this protest?" Ha, joke, I guess, because Carney is upset. That's what he was saying. He was saying, like, prominent people, smart people like Carney are upset about this, so we need to crush this peaceful demonstration. So yeah, I mean, I think Mark Carney has kind of been the hidden hand in all of this for quite a while now.
Yes, and I believe it was, well, you mentioned, I like your analogies to legacy media organizations, by the way, like Globalist News and the Globe and Mail. I don't know if it was the Globe and Mail, but I think there was an article that Carney penned as well, where he basically recommended freezing the accounts before Chrystia Freeland actually ended up making that decision.
Might have been the same article.
It's the same article. Yeah, you're right. Yes, because he called the people at the Freedom Convoy seditionists. Yeah. Which is rich, because I wasn't there, but I was cheering on the whole thing from home, because I was one of those people. I was fine with I was totally fine with being locked out of restaurants. You know what I mean? I knew better the entire time. Like I wasn't going to get the goddamn thing. But at the time, I was working. I was a contractor that had to go on federal property. So yeah, I was mandated to get the shots, and I did because I have children to feed. Right? I knew it was wrong, and here I am. I'm still alive. You know, my side effects weren't too bad, but yeah. So I was cheering you guys on. I felt like that was probably one of the biggest violations of my bodily autonomy that I've ever been through in my life. Never been more defeated going into a Costco pharmacy to getting force injected with something that I didn't want. So Jeff, I want to thank you for going to Ottawa because I know you did. Just know I was cheering for you, man, because like it wasn't just the truckers, it wasn't just the unvaccinated. You were really speaking for a lot of Canadians when you were there.
Well,
so thank you.
yeah, I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. You know, and it's my pleasure. I'm just, you know, kind of keeping with the principles that have guided me for my entire life. And you know, I was in the military, and we, you know, believe in human rights and freedoms so much that we're willing to put our lives on the line in countries we don't care about for kids we never met to have that chance that we all had growing up here in Canada, and now it's gone. Yeah, I mean, everything I've been doing basically since my release in September of 2021, just in time for vaccine passports, when I took possession of my retirement house in here in Nova Scotia. So right off the bat, I was being, you know, my rights were being violated, fundamental freedoms be damned. So everything that I signed up to serve, these politicians and senior bureaucrats, they were wiping their asses with that. And you know, these rights and these freedoms, they are the legacy of our fallen soldiers. That's why we say, lest we forget, lest we forget lest we forget what they stood for, and lest we forget that we all have a sacred civic duty to safeguard our inheritance for generations to come. So, you know, with that in mind, that is you know, my thinking, I guess that was always my thinking when I first started defying mask mandates. You know, I got arrested a couple of times here in Nova Scotia, filed a bunch of human rights complaints for denials of service, and then they fired up the trucker convoy. And honestly, I was, man, that was some of the most elated I think I ever was in my entire life when I saw them doing that, because I actually got off of social media after January 6th because I was still in the military. And when I saw them, you know, they're coming for the right wingers, I was like, oh my God, I better take cover here. So I still had a couple of years or whatever. Well, that would have been 2020, and I was eligible for my pension in 2021. So I was like, I still have like 18 months to go or whatever it is. So I better just lay low until I can, you know, get out of the line of fire here, and then we'll fight them on the outside. And that's exactly what I ended up doing. I never expected that the full tyranny would come into full effect, like just as I was taking my release. But I ended up in the trucker convoy, because like I said, I had not really been on social media or anything. So I didn't even really know that there was anything like a freedom movement that was forming. And when I saw them going there, I was just like, you know, this is where I need to be. And that's, you know, I haven't stopped, basically. I made lots of contacts there. I think it was probably, that was the most, you know, most amazing, most beautiful display of true loving patriotism that I think I've ever seen in my entire life. Best thing I've ever seen in Canada and perhaps anywhere. And, you know, a lot of people got pretty demoralized with the crackdown. I went there telling people, if you're not willing to get arrested, then you should leave now, because they're going to January 6th us. That's what they're doing. Look at the news, look at the media. It's the same narrative. Okay. The first guy to call Justin Trudeau about this was Joe Biden. So, what do you think is going to happen here? We're going to jail. And you know, I did get arrested. We did go to jail. But yeah, I mean, I was watching that same playbook unfold and expecting to go to jail and take this into the courts so we could find out. But the courts have been another disappointment, like this entire time. My charges did stick. Looks like we're going to the Supreme Court stage next, because the Court of Appeals denied to hear my case. But mischief and obstructing, I'm not getting 7 or 8 years. I got 1 year's probation and 50 hours community service, and I can't protest in Ottawa. But still, like, this is the first protest I ever attended in my entire life. Like, you know, I was serving in the military. I wasn't even allowed to protest. So the first time I ever went to a protest in my entire life. I got thrown in jail and banned from the city of Ottawa for 2.5 years. Couldn't even go to the National War Monuments. And I'm a Canadian veteran of 20 years service and 2 wars, for crying out loud. So that's probably a historic first, really, and not a good one.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Veteran banned from the Veterans Memorial. And just,
Yeah.
man, the way you put it, though, about how it being, the most peaceful, serene experience you've had in your life, the media definitely paints a different picture. And I feel like the majority of Canadians look at it a different way. But like I said, I don't have the experience of actually being there, but I remember when it was taking place, I was watching a lot of live streams, and I just remember thinking like, man, like everything they're telling me about this on the news is not true. If you just tune into a quick live stream, you could see it.
Yeah.
Like I was watching streams at like, people were walking around filming at 11 o'clock at night. It was quiet. You know what I mean? Like, I know it got a little rowdy, like the first couple of weekends with people beeping their horns at night, but like for the most part, like Tamara Litch and like Chris Barber, like they were like a liaison, you know what I mean? Like they made sure everybody, were as respectful as you could be to the residents of Ottawa while that was going on. And just the whole narrative about like pissing on the Veterans Memorial and all that stuff, like it sounds to me like nonsense. And this whole thing about how they were racist misogynists there, like again, I wasn't there. I've seen it on a live stream, but I've seen like it appears to be like Canadians of all races, colors, and creeds coming together for the same thing. You know what I mean? Like I didn't buy any of it.
No, I mean, you did see Canadians of all races, colors, creeds all over the place. Like there were truckers from the Eastern Bloc who escaped communism who showed up there. There were Sikhs, Sikh truckers. There were Hindus. There was a guy. I was just thinking as you were saying that there was one guy I talked to. It was so cool. I was at the War Monument where I spent most of my time, and that was really all I wanted to do because I mean I had just gotten out. I was not in really good shape, like in terms of my mental health. So I said, I just want to kind of hang out with the guys and be where I need to be. But I wasn't out there live streaming and doing all that stuff. But I was talking to this Inuit guy, and he had actually come down from Nuvik. I'm not sure exactly where, because I mean, I don't know my way around up there, but he had like the seal skin garb on. He had the traditional like indigenous garb, and it was all like seal skin and fur and these big freaking gloves and mucklucks and all of this stuff, and there was like little designs on it and everything. It was the coolest thing I'd ever want to see. And I was just like, man, like it was just like everybody kind of woke up out of this trance. Like everybody's been in this fearful, hateful propaganda bubble for a couple of years, and then we all showed up in Ottawa. And it was like we remembered who we were. It's like, yeah, this is who we were. We were playing street hockey. There was hugs going around everywhere. The police were hugging people. People were crying like with tears of joy. Just having a good time. And even insofar as the rowdiness is concerned, I mean, I didn't really see that. It was like you said, like for the most part, it was quiet after 11. Somebody did seek an injunction the first week that they were there for the horn blaring. They wanted to stop. I think it was after 6 p.m. and which the convoy did comply. They did abide in that injunction. So even the nonsense about like the noise, it's just that it's nonsense. Like it wasn't like that when I was there. There were horns, and sometimes like there were times when they would all kind of blare together, and it would be like a chorus or something that you could hear going up in the sky. But those are in the middle of the day, right? Yeah. Like they weren't doing them in the middle of the night.
And also, too, nobody was forcing anybody to listen to the honks. That was a choice, right?
Nobody really lives that close to Parliament Hill.
Yeah.
Like there's like the first couple of streets. City blocks away from Parliament Hill, like they're not really residential districts. They're all, it's like Trudeau's office and stuff like that up on Wellington in that particular area. You'd have to go several blocks down from Parliament Hill to really get into any kind of residential housing. It is the city after all. Like no matter where you are, there's going to be traffic and all that kind of stuff. And I also went to say like Canada Day 150, and that was way more rowdy, way more drunk people, way noisier. than anything I saw at the trucker convoy. See, I actually lived in Ottawa from 2014 to 2021. That was my last posting at National Defense Headquarters. So, I can tell you that there wasn't anything like, when Black Lives Murder came to town, or the Fat Ugly Women's March, like, those people were terrible. But the truckers, like, they were just wonderful kind of small town, salt of the earth, grassroots Canadians. And it was, like I said, it was just, I never felt so good, really. I don't think I ever felt so good in my adult life as I did while I was at that trucker convoy.
Totally, man. And like also the Palestinian protests that have been happening across the country too. I mean, there's room for nuance in this issue too. You know what I mean? Like what's going on over there is absolutely terrible. And, there's reason to protest, the aggression of Israel, but it doesn't seem evident to me that like any of this has any business on Canadian soil, especially when, you know what I mean? When you just consider that these protests actually have gotten violent, and, people are, Jewish Canadians are feeling unsafe. There's racial slurs being, hurled out at people. And
that really is what's going on too. Like, it is an act of intimidation. They're out there talking about, like, burning the country down and doing all these intimidating chants and the like. And from the river to the sea is a call to genocide. They say that all the time. And death to the IDF was another one. Like, we're talking about a death cult here. And you see them on the streets. Like, David Menzies is interviewing that young woman with the AK-47 earrings. He interviewed another man, 30s, I guess, who openly said, yeah, we love death more than you love life. He interviewed another guy who said, like, no matter what, like, Canada is going to become Islamic. We're going to outbreed you, even if, it doesn't happen in the near term, stuff like that. So there is a strain, a very strong strain within the Ummah, within the global Islamic community, of this idea of conquest by hook or by crook, by any means necessary, essentially. And there are pretty well understood principles, like hijra, the concept of, like, conquest through migration, because that's what the Prophet did. He migrated from Mecca to Medina, and then he built a following there. He was exiled from Mecca, as a young prophet, and he built his following in Medina, and then traveled back to conquer Mecca eventually. So that's a principle that is kind of one understood in the Islamist world. And yeah, you see them shooting up schools. So it's flagrant intimidation. Where they're taking over the streets for prayer, that's definitely a bad sign. You've seen it all over Europe and country after country that this is an escalation. So it's usually not long after they start engaging in these displays of dominance that we start to see the terrorism ramp up. So that's deeply concerning, what's happening there. And there's so much propaganda that's coming out of that war right now. I would recommend, say, there's a couple of good accounts on X, like one of them is called Gaza Wood. They have some folks on the ground there who are leaking, like, this behind the scenes cell phone footage, and it's a production. They're actually faking a lot of the casualties. The New York Times will faithfully reprint Hamas propaganda verbatim, like they did with the Al-Lowry hospital. They said that it was flattened, when really it was just a stray rocket that was fired by Islamic Jihad that hit the parking lot. So I think the response in this particular case here is just way overblown, and the level of propaganda that I see, I would say, is the cause, because we see a lot of really weird stuff happening, even Queers for Palestine and stuff. It's
yeah, that one really sort of rubs me the wrong way, because, like, it's funny, man. Like, I don't actually consider myself right wing. Like, I'm sort of, like, politically homeless. You know what I mean? Like, if you ask me where I was politically 10 or 15 years ago, I would have told you I'm a liberal. And I feel like I haven't changed, dude. You know what I mean? Like, I'm still the same old guy I was in the 90s and mid to late 2000s, you know what I mean? I don't think I've changed it at all, but, like, when I just look at what, like, the left has become these days, it's absolutely crazy. Like, Queers for Palestine, hitching your wagon to that, you know what I mean? Like, Like I totally get it. Like you have sympathy for the Palestinian civilians. I do too. You know what I mean? But like to just come out and say like queers for Palestine, because that culture will throw you off of a roof for what you are. You know what I mean? Like this is not, it's completely antithetical to the free Western society that we live in Canada. Like
Absolutely.
it's just I know it's a stereotypical meme that's been repeated 1,000 times, but it's like chickens for KFC. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's the same thing. I mean, we've all heard that joke before, but it's true. It's what it is.
Yeah. And the only way it makes sense is if you're brainwashed into a Marxist worldview. And we've been talking about indoctrination in the universities for decades, or at least I have. Yeah, that's what's happening is they're coming out Marxist. And there was a Marxist professor by the name of Kimberly Cranshaw from, well, she's still around, but back in the 90s, her thesis was on intersectionalism. And you probably heard of this intersectionalism or intersectionality, where it's basically like people are oppressed for all these different qualities, whether it's their blackness or being female or being queer or being Muslim, say.
So I don't mean to cut you off, but like I first heard this term intersectionality like right around the time like during the BLM thing, right? Like again, man, there's room to be objective about this. Like the George Floyd thing, when you get right down to it, was kind of outrageous. You know what I mean? Like the guy didn't need to die. I could see the nuance there. You know what I mean? Like there was more than enough cops to subdue him without killing him. Don't get me wrong. He was jacked up on fentanyl for sure. Right. Yeah. But like, I sort of think that like maybe the knee on the neck didn't help. You know what I mean? But back to intersectionality though, like all of a sudden you have this movement pop off, and then all of a sudden like trans people are hitching their wagon to it. You know what I mean? Like the whole thing just becomes a mess. So is that what you mean by intersectionality?
Well, there's you can find variations on this in different papers that are published on the subject, but there's some variation of like the wheel of intersectionality, and it's a spoke wheel. And the center line horizontally is the line of oppression. And then you have the kind of bourgeoisie classes that are the lines on the top, and they cross over that dominance line to be oppression on the other end. So you have the bourgeois on one end, and below the line of the oppression, you have the proletariat thing. And it's all the way down, like, so men would be on one end and female would be, third wave feminism is a good example of like cultural Marxism. It's kind of the OG of cultural Marxism, where women take the place of the proletariat and men take the place of the bourgeois. So women are the oppressed class, and there's a lot of this, overthrowing the patriarchy and blah, blah, blah. So it's very Marxist. And what they've done with intersectionalism is they've basically just pitted the have-nots against the haves. So it's not just men oppressing women anymore. It's even like attractive people or are bourgeois, and the blue-haired androgynous ham planets are the oppressed. And so, it's almost like they're implying that attractive people stole all the sex appeal from the ugly people, the thug uglies. But
and then there's like fat shaming gets into the mix too. I think what you're describing is probably like right around the moment in time that the left completely lost the plot, and I couldn't identify with those people anymore, man.
And there's this other phenomenon, like the kind of psychological warfare that they use against us is based on, what some folks in the intelligence community that I've spoken with, anyway, they've done presentations and published reports and stuff like this on the idea of these Hegelian dialectical attacks, is what they call them. It's a form of psychological warfare, because what Marx did is he developed his own dialectical materialism, and it was based on Hegel's dialectic, which was about a thesis and antithesis, and these, like, the thesis is the idea and the antithesis is the opposite idea, and then it's basically, you just kind of hurl the two of them at one another, and the strong points reinforce one another, the weak points cancel out through a process of negation, the dialectical negation, and then you end up with a thesis. So it goes a synthesis. So thesis, antithesis, throw them together, and you get yourself this synthesis now. So That's what they've been doing, even with things like a lot of the name calling that we face. Like if you're worried about border security, then you're a racist. Like this is, or you're xenophobic. They'll throw these idiotic Marxist words at you that is intended to kind of create a new reality in your mind. And also build this Orwellian prison in your mind where you're self-policing all the time and you won't let yourself think these thoughts and say these ideas, express these concerns. And what's happening with intersectionalism, you take that wheel of intersectionality where it's men on one side, women on the other, whether it's attractive people on one side as a bourgeois, unattractive on the other. Well, queer people are clearly oppressed, and the straight white cis hetero patriarchs are the bourgeoisie in this case. So what's happening is these ideas are synthesizing, because we have Jews as a class of bourgeois and Hamas and Palestinians, or jihadis broadly as kind of the oppressed class, and those things are merging together in this kind of Hegelian synthesis to produce queers for Palestine. So it doesn't make sense to anybody who's operating on a logical framework. But if your worldview is Marxist, then yes, it fits quite well. So now you have the queers actually teaming up with Hamas, because those are both oppressed classes, to overthrow the existing social order. And whether that's going after the Jews or I guess going after the straight people. The good news is all incoherent ideologies are doomed to self-implode, I think. So it's just a matter of mitigating the damage between now and when that happens, to make sure that there's something left to rebuild when we come out the other side of this thing.
Yeah, well, let's hope it doesn't get to that point. I'm losing a lot of hope for Canadians, like, waking up to a lot of the stuff that we're talking about. I mean, I feel like a lot of people are, but a lot of people are still asleep. And just getting back to the fire thing, man, like, it blows my mind, and it fills me with disappointment that so many people seem to be harping on you or harping on anybody who dares defend you for this, because my hat's off to you on this move, man. Like, that is an expensive that's an expensive thing to do to yourself there. And one thing that really surprised me is it's not a $25,000 fine. They put taxes on there. That's $28,000.
Yeah. And don't forget the victim fee as well, because it was taxes, court costs, and victim fee.
Victim
fee. Hear me in
fee.
the video. I'm like, oh, victim fee. Okay. I wasn't expecting that one.
Who did you victimize?
Myself, I guess. I think I'm the victim here, really. Like, of state oppression.
So it wasn't the DNR officers that you politely called
and thanked.
I called so they weren't the victims.
I called to make an appointment to come in for my $28,000 fine, and then I thanked them for issuing it to me. So I think they're doing okay. They gave me their business cards and all that stuff. Like the guys were professional. The guys were pretty good. There was a little bit of tension there initially, which was to be expected. I fully expected that, they would try to deter me from going into the woods, because that's what their superiors expect of them.
They did. They definitely did. The video, if you haven't seen it, like, they give you a few outs, but you were very insistent. You're just like, no, I'm back here. And my favorite, it's kind of funny, but my favorite part of the second video, your first video, This Is Not the Woods. That's a great one. That one was, I really appreciate it, because I was, like, really pissed off about the Woods ban. And when I saw that video, I was actually laughing at the absurdity of the situation. It was very comical the way you put that together, but you kind of called back to it in the, when you were in the office there, like, after they took you in, because the gravity of what you'd done sort of was setting in, and you just said, "This is not the woods," and you're filming the inside of the station. So yeah, and you've been getting a lot of attention for this too. So I'm really hoping that this is going to, like, call some attention to this, maybe on, like, the rest of Canada, of course, but maybe on the world stage, because Joe Rogan shouted you out, man. Like, Joe Rogan, I can't recall if he actually said your name, but, like,
no, he even said Saskatchewan.
I saw that. Yeah. Joe Rogan doesn't have a really big understanding of Canada, but, used to come here all the time, but I listen to his show quite frequently. Actually, I'm a big fan, but he's referenced how far we've fallen. So, man, like maybe you could get on Joe Rogan. I think
There does seem to be something like an online campaign for exactly that.
Really?
And people are tagging me everywhere. It's insane. Like there's this Joe Rogan News and Information. I don't think it's an actual Joe Rogan affiliated account, but they were like, who would you like to see as a guest on the Joe Rogan show? And I couldn't believe the number of people who were tagging me. It was insane.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll find that and share that out with this episode, because I also noticed that a couple of days after Tim Houston, because I follow Joe on Facebook, right? So his like Facebook story, short, like a couple of days after that, was Tim Houston making the announcement, and I think he had like a clown face emoji or something. So yeah, man, I think you're definitely on his radar. People were doing the same thing with Pierre Poilievre in the election, if you can recall. Like they were trying to get Joe's attention to have Pierre on, and then after our election, Joe revealed that he had reached out to Pierre and his team said no.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised by that. What I'm surprised by is the fact that Jordan Peterson was the one who gave him the cushy puff piece interview and never even brought up anything like Bill C-16 or Bill C-4. Like Jordan Peterson first rose to prominence for opposing Bill C-16, and Pierre Poilievre is the guy who voted for the conversion therapy bill twice when it was Bill C-6 in the 42nd Parliament, and once when it was Bill C-4 in the 43rd Parliament. You see, because they called the snap election, so the conversion therapy bill died with the 42nd Parliament, but then after the election, it was the first damn thing they passed in like January 2022, and it was the unanimous vote. And he knew too, because I was his constituent. I called him up about it, and I told him all about puberty blockers for minors, or puberty blockers for children, cross-sex hormones for minors, double mastectomies for 13-year-olds, phalloplasties and vaginoplasties for 18-year-olds. I told him all about it. And then he went and voted for it, and and then I co-organized the 1 Million March for Children, and he got out in front of the news cameras and said, what's all this stuff about puberty blockers? What are you talking about, puberty blockers for minors? He knew. He's a snake. He knew exactly what was going on because I personally told him.
I call Pierre Poilievre a weather vane, because like he's so confusing, man, because like sometimes he really does like come out on the right side of the issue. Like he eventually did come around to like the parents' rights protest, only after it was like overwhelmingly like safe for him to do so. And like same with the Freedom Convoy too, man. Like he to his credit though, like he came out probably within a good 4 days of that, you know what I mean? Like he publicly supported it. And it sucks because it seems like for mainstream politics in Canada, this is the best we have so far. You know what I mean? Like nobody's really been like ballsy enough to sort of come out on these issues sometimes when it's politically convenient, you know?
By mainstream, I think you mean like in terms of elected politicians.
Yeah, like elected politicians and like the parties that we currently have that like seem to have a snowball's chance in hell of like forming government. And you can't even include the NDP in that anymore. You know what I mean? Like we're essentially a two-party system now. Like me personally, man, like I'm aware you're like part of the People's Party, and like it's just such a shame that like these parties are just so fringe that nobody will ever take them seriously. Because like as much as I say I'm like a man of my principles, like when it comes down to getting Justin Trudeau out, you know what I mean? Like I was gonna vote Conservative. I was gonna plug my nose and just go do it. You know what I mean? And it's like,
how'd that work out?
Yeah, not very well.
Well, he was gone already anyway.
Well, you know what I mean, like Justin Trudeau 2.0, but yeah. But the 2021 election was really bad because Poilievre wasn't even the opposition leader at that point. It was Aaron O'Toole, and O'Toole at the time, like, because the vaccine mandates was my number one issue. Because in 2021 they hadn't mandated it yet, but I was watching it closely, and his best solution was, we don't think people should have to get the vaccine if you work in a federal building, but you should have to test every day. Well, how about no? You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be treated like a second-class citizen either way. right?
Yeah, we're a low trust society now, Aaron. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Blandrew Shear without the dimples. Yeah, I mean, the old party guard is really the source of the corruption when it comes to, well, all the parties across the board. And what they've done is they've basically turned our political parties into boy bands. You know, and so they had Justin Trudeau, that duplicitous Ken doll of a prime minister under which we suffered for 10 years. And the Conservatives were going, oh, okay, so Canadians want us to be a boy band. Let's put Blandrew Shear in there. They cut out Maxime Bernier. Now imagine how different of a country we would have if Maxime Bernier had won the leadership election or the leadership race for the Conservative Party back in 2018. But on the 12th round of voting, Blandrew Shear got 50.1% and Maxime got 49.9%. And when they asked,
I didn't realize it was that close.
Yeah. And when they asked for a recount, they said, sure, you can have a recount. You can look at the machines, but we already shredded all the paper ballots. So they put Blandrew Shear out there. And remember, they marketed him as like the Justin Bluto, basically, where they had him kind of mimicking Justin Trudeau, you know, doing the yoga pose, only it was funny because Blandrew is not in very good shape like that. He can't really do the yoga pose. So he's holding his feet up on the desk. Yeah, it's just, it's a performance, right? These are performers. And it's the old party guard who gets to pick the winners and losers. It's the ones, even the local riding associations, right? The ones who are picking their candidates. How do we end up with these idiots as MPs? You know, they keep going for these nice boys and stuff like that. Well, weak men bring hard times. You know, that's and that's what we're living through right now. This is an era in which weak men bring hard times. They kept Pierre out when it might have been good for the country, and now I don't know, man. Like, you know, knowing what I know, just having been his constituent and interacted with him, I know the guy's a total snake and a fraud, personally. But most people can't see that, and you know. You see him going around the country wearing, I saw him one time and he was wearing this plaid shirt, this plaid overshirt in like the basement of a church or something. And I'm like, Pierre does not wear a plaid overshirt. Like, I lived in his riding. I saw him out and about. He's got like a goddamn cashmere turtleneck on or something like that on his most casual day. And he's always been the most dapper guy in the parliament. And what does he do? When he stands up to talk to somebody while he's wearing this flannel shirt, he tries to snap that button closed like it's his blazer and he's standing up in the parliament or something, right? Just because that's who he really is. He's doing this, you know, the snap the button closed because he's so dapper and polished. And then, you know, he'll put the hats on and stuff when whatever headdress it is that whatever ethnic group he happens to be hanging out with, he's always dressing up like them. So he's doing the minority Mr. Dress Up just like Trudeau. And then he's got the, you know, I'll take off my glasses and put on a T-shirt that makes me look like I have muscles stuff for the kind of, you know, standard conservatives out there in old stock Canadians, I guess. Like he's a big tough guy now or something, but he's never been that guy. That's not who he is. Nobody knows who he really is. He's just an empty suit that they can fill up with an agenda. And I've always called him a political weather vane. So it seems like you're onto this game as well. Like that guy never saw a bandwagon that he didn't climb onto. He didn't say jack about stopping like vaccine mandates or riots or lockdowns or any of this stuff.
Until it became insanely popular to do so, until like literally the crowds were assembling at their doorsteps. You know what I mean? Yeah. He's like, well, it seems pretty safe to say something about this now. That's right. But it's like, it's crazy because like, even still, I know all this, but
leading. That's not leading.
No,
he's just an opportunist.
And I know all this, but like last election, I was just like, yep, he's our guy. You know what I mean? Like, do you see any political any political way out of the situation that we're in Canada?
Oh yeah, certainly I do. It's just that it's going to take time. Like it's going to take years. It's not going to be overnight. I think that a lot of people got really down after the convoy because they got so hopeful that maybe we were finally going to break. And you know what? The convoy did is it forced a tyrant to act like a tyrant, woke up a hell of a lot more people, and it ended a global pandemic. Okay, the pandemic globally ended with the trucker convoy. So certainly accomplished a lot. Did the truckers form government? No, but I still count that as a success. It's just not like total and complete, ultimate Cinderella solution. No, but things don't work that way in real life. This is political warfare, and war is not won in a single battle. You know, they take years. They don't take like a day or a month or even 1 year. They take years. So I think I'm looking more towards like the 2030 horizon. Let's stop this 2030 agenda in its tracks. And I think once we start getting into the 2030s, we're going to see things go back on the upswing. And the strategy now is really more about mitigating the damage between now and then.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. And, you know, back to, I just want to briefly touch on what you said about the truckers ending the global pandemic. That's something that I've had conversations with people that don't see things the way I do. And, you know, they say like, oh, it's so ridiculous that you would think that, like, oh, what were they even doing in Ottawa? The restrictions were on their way out anyways. No, they weren't. And I say this to any time I'm debating somebody on the topic. I'll be like, man, I will give you $50 if you can like go back on Google on the Wayback Machine. And if you could find me one premier or one Canadian public health official that announced a definitive date to the end of vaccine passports or mask mandates before January of 2022, I'll give you $50, and nobody's been able to do it. And it wasn't just Canada either, like, because people say, because there are countries that, you know, they loosened restrictions before we did, and that's fine. But people often forget that there were smaller movements similar to the Freedom Convoy popping off all across Europe that previous summer, but nobody had the gumption that you guys did, man, because they would have these huge protests, and like there were huge ones in Italy and France where they were literally throwing shit at the government buildings, but they would go home at the end of the day and they'd come back the next week. You know what I mean? This was something different, man. So
yeah, and that seems to be their excuse, right? It's the fact that we wouldn't leave. So we stayed, and I remember like just watching them on my phone, everybody saying, okay, this province just announced, that province just announced. It's like, it's working. So we're staying. We're going to stay, you know, until we win our freedoms back. And the left seems to have twisted that into, if you protest for a day, then it's protesting. But if you protest for a number of weeks, then it's terrorism or sedition or whatever. So that seems to be the only distinction that you can make, you know, once we've kind of boiled it all down and looked at what the actual facts on the ground were. I think that a lot of people, even on X, with you know, the more prominent leftist accounts, they're not really going so far as to say that it was sedition, or sorry, to say that you know, people were peeing on the monument and burning down buildings. But that all seems to have been very well debunked. But they're still saying, oh yeah, it was sedition because you guys didn't go home at the end of the day. So, but that was why it was so successful too. So just understand that you can't really, you're not going to win, you know, you're not going to win everybody over in like one fell swoop. It's just not going to work like that. It's going to take a few more years before we really turn this ship around. Like, it's got a lot of inertia. It's a big, bad machine, and it doesn't turn on a dime. So I think, you know, some of the things that we've talked about even here tonight, when we see that the Nova Scotia you know, response here, they're not leaning into the climate stuff as much in Atlantic Canada. I haven't really heard them mention climate, to be honest. Climate change, certainly not. Definitely not global boiling. So they don't really seem to be hyping that as much. And I notice these things. So I think, okay, it kind of seems like the tide is sort of turning. And just in my example, you know, I certainly never expected that I was going to be interviewed by every mainstream news outlet when I went out there to get my fine. I was on CTV National. I've been on CBC. I've been on Globalist News. And, you know, they not even calling me a white supremacist or...
well, that's a start, right?
Yeah, I think that these are all just kind of, you got to watch these sort of nuanced details and things, and to really understand that I think the tide is ultimately turning. It's a very slow turn, and people are impatient.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. Well, Jeff, it's been awesome to have you on the show today, man. There's one thing I want to touch on that I didn't before we get out of here, though, and that's you are not collecting money, right?
No.
Yeah, okay. So if anybody is seeing this and they want to support Jeff, and you've seen like a Give Send Go or a GoFundMe or even some sort of weird sketchy looking crypto link, Jeff is not fundraising for this, correct? You're going to be paying the ticket if you have to pay it by yourself, right? There's no like fundraising for this. You are not grifting. That is not the point of this, right? Okay.
And look, one step at a time. Like I have like a summary offense ticket. Okay, so this hasn't gone to court. The judge hasn't said yes, you must pay the fine. I'm obviously fighting the fine. So like if I end up having to pay for it, well, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But right now, we're just dealing with legal expenses, and it's the JCCF, the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom, that's funding my legal defense. And they're a wonderful organization. They represented me for my convoy charges and for my Rolling Thunder charges. I know a lot of, like, they're really great people, so I have a lot of confidence in them. And if anybody wants to support me in my effort to help win back our freedoms, then you can donate to the JCCF. I don't want to touch any money, and I think the chances are that this fine is going to be struck down. So I'm pretty confident. I'm confident in my team. I'm confident in our legal case, and I'm not even really thinking about what if I have to pay the fine right now. So.
Yeah, well, I've got my fingers crossed for you, Jeff, and I've got a good feeling you won't be paying that fine. I think that the this media tour you're on right now, and just the ridiculous nature of this thing in and of itself, I think you're the canary in the coal mine. So yeah, so I want to thank you for that, and yeah, man, it's been an honor to have you on the show, dude. It's been great to talk to you, man.
Yeah, likewise, bro. Thanks for having me, and just spread the word, I guess. So I really hope that we can raise the awareness and get a kind of spotlight on these people. And every time they talk, that's the good news. It's like every time they get out there for another press conference, more people wake up because more people can see what frickin' idiots they are. So pressure works. And please, if you want to donate to JCCF, great. Maybe you're not in a position to do that, then just spread the word, share the story, and mock these people.
Mock them all the time at all costs. That's great advice, Jeff.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's about it for my show tonight. So make sure you smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this, most importantly, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Johnny from Nova Scotia says thank you. Hey, Johnny from Nouvelle-Écosse, il dit merci, thank you.
Thanks to you. God
Thank you
bless
so
you.
much.
We're broke to bed.
Yeah, come on.